Hey, real quick while I've got you, I want to remind you that my final Honest Art Workshop of 2025 is going to be here in Austin, Texas, October 22nd through 26th. And I know the idea of taking a workshop can feel really vulnerable and sometimes a little scary, but it truly is the fastest way to elevate your art. So whether you're a beginner or you've been painting for a while, I can tell you that this workshop will help you elevate your art to that fine art status, and it'll help you find and embrace your voice, your signature in your work. So if this sounds good, don't sleep on it because the workshop is already half full and it will sell out. So go to the link in the show notes if you would like to join me in Austin in October. Hello and welcome back to the Honest Art Podcast. I'm your host, Jody King, and I'm so excited that you guys show up week after week to tune in, and hopefully the information that my team and I are supporting you with is really helpful. So, and I've heard from so many of you. I love hearing from you. So don't be shy about sending me a DM. But if you really want to help a girl out, I would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple and a review. And if you are watching this on YouTube, it'd be great if you could like and subscribe to the channel. But without further ado, let's get into this week's podcast. So this is all about what an artist's website needs to include to be effective, right? But before I get into that, I just want to state a bit of a caveat, and that is that an artist can not have a website and still be effective in selling their art. So I think so many times we do get caught up in, well, it's not professional if I don't have a website. I'm not legit if I don't have a website. And all of that is BS. That is not true. I have worked with so many artists who have not had a website. They eventually got one, but they didn't start out with a website. But here's what you do need to have. Even if you don't have a website, you do need to have some sort of online presence. And I always recommend Artwork Archive. Artworkarchive.com is a website where it's basically an inventory management system that's so easy to use. Oh my gosh, so easy to use. Also, if you are interested, if you go to Artwork Archive and you feel like this is something you want to do, you can do artworkarchive.com/JK. And I think you get something like 20% off. So the first year. Anyway, but here's the thing. What I was saying is that even if you don't have a website, you do need to have some sort of online presence, because I think this is a fascinating statistic that I read. Over 95% of the world, or maybe it said 99%. Anyway, it's huge. Let's just say over 95% of the world will never see our art in person. So having an online presence is imperative to be able to get that exposure, to be able to sell art. Even if you just want to do art as, a nonprofit or something, you're still going to have an online presence. So for the sake of this podcast, let's assume that you do want to have a website. If you do want to have a website, here are the things that you will need to include on that website. Are you ready? Let's get messy. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to talk about is you want to have a way on your website to collect emails, because collecting emails and having an email list is going to be your number one tool in your online business. Now, for those of you that are here saying, I don't want an email list, I don't want to send emails, you will not be the first person to ever told me that. But I will say what I've said to every artist that I've worked with, and that is that it will make all of the difference in your business. And here's why. People that sign up for your email list, I don't care if it's 20 people. I don't care if it's 100 people. It doesn't matter how many people. The people that have decided to sign up for your email list, they think the sun shines out your ass. They love what you're doing. Now, will they necessarily love every piece of art we create? No. But the fact that you are an artist, that you are showing up for yourself, that you're like putting your stake in the ground, and you're saying, I'm a creative, and you're putting yourself out there, you are so freaking inspiring to people. You may not believe me, but it is so true. Just start sending out 1 or 2 emails. Let people see what you're working on. Maybe show them your creative space. You don't have to have a studio. You can show them your kitchen table, whatever it might be. But you need to have an email list if you want to sell more art. So on your website, you are going to need a way to collect your emails. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do that. Obviously, you can have on your website, it can say, subscribe, to my email list to receive. But just know this, if you write, want to join my email list, nobody's going to do that. Well, hardly anybody's going to do that. You've got to make it a little more enticing. Tell them what they will receive if they sign up for your email. So one of the things that I used to say when that I use a lead magnet now, but I'm going to talk about that in a second. But one of the things I used to say is to be the first to know about new work, open studios, gallery openings, and other shenanigans, leave your email here. And that was a way to build the list. So it tells them this is what you'll get when you leave your email. And that can be effective. Now, the other thing that I do now is, you know how you go to some websites and you'll get this pop-up that says, want to save 20% on your first order, or want to save 15% on your first order. And that's where you put in your name and your email. That is called a lead magnet. Okay. So, and almost every website, I know, like Squarespace, all kinds of different platforms, they will have a way for you to be able to create that. That is a great way to collect emails. But if you've got a website and you don't have a way to collect emails, get on that, because that will be really, really super important to your business. Now, here's the other thing about a lead magnet. You don't always need to offer a percentage off to get their emails. You can do things like want to see my full process of creating this painting, leave your email. You want to, you can always offer them anything. Well, maybe not anything. This isn't OnlyFans. You want to offer them something enticing that an art collector would be interested in. I know one thing that I've suggested to people that has been helpful was want to know my best tips for hanging a painting in various room settings, and then you include a PDF with that. That's an easy way to do it. But anyway, a lead magnet will help you collect emails for sure. Okay, next thing. On your homepage, the first page that people see when they get there, you want to immediately tell them who you are and what you're offering. It needs to be really clear. Now, this may sound like duh, of course it needs to, but hear me out. So a few years ago, an artist reached out to me and asked if she could do a one-on-one call, because she wanted me to review her website with her. And we took a look at her website, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. She was an artist, but she was also like a yoga instructor, and she lived in the mountains, and she really captured all of that beautifully. But what she wasn't really capturing is that this website was about selling her artwork. So while she had all these beautiful images of nature and her in a few yoga poses, it wasn't art forward. It wasn't her name, her about, we're going to talk about an artist statement. It wasn't that forward on her homepage. So she did some changing of all of that, and it was so much more effective after she changed that. So let people know immediately who you are and what you have to offer. You don't want to make them search, because they won't. If they don't see it immediately on that homepage, they're not going to go looking for it. Not likely. Okay. Now, as we're talking about the about, or like say, who is Jody, or who is whatever, however you want to put it on your page, that's where you want to talk about who you are. So that can be in the form of an artist statement, or it can be in the form of a bio. Now, you might be asking, what's the difference between an artist statement and a bio? Well, an artist statement is first person, where you talk about, what you're passionate about, what inspires you. Sometimes it's about process, but it's where you tell your story in first person. And that's where you really have an opportunity to connect yourself and your art to somebody else. That's the artist statement. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about what that artist statement needs to include. The other thing is a bio. Now, a bio is different in that a bio tends to be much shorter. So a bio is usually 3 to 5 sentences, and it's always in the third person. So one way you can think about this is like, what if somebody was introducing you in a magazine article, it would be in third person. It would say Jody King, blah, 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 right? So it's third, somebody's talking about you. That's a bio. If somebody was introducing you on a podcast, that they're going to use a bio, third person, because they're introducing you. If they're introducing you on the stage, same thing, a bio. So you do want to have either an artist statement or a bio. I always suggest that it's so much more personal if you include the artist statement rather than the bio. Bio is usually used for kind of external purposes. But an artist statement is a huge opportunity for you to be able to relate and to connect to any potential collectors. And so that artist statement needs to really be personal, right? Because like, imagine meeting somebody, but all you really walked away with was their name and they're an artist. That doesn't have like a really personal connection. So you want to think about, what is it about you? What is it about your story? Why did you start painting in the first place? Why do you use the process that you use? So within all of this, think about what you can say that will help you stand out. So one of the things that I often hear is, or rather read, is an artist will say, I started painting, let's just say it was like me. I started painting when I was 35, and I love painting with acrylic paints, and I usually use layers, and I paint in something called abstract expressionism. Like, shoot, that is the most boring shit ever. That's so boring. And not only is it boring, it could also sound like about 1 million other artists out there. And the whole idea is we want to set ourselves apart from all of the other artists out there. So instead, and by the way, my artist statement doesn't say this now, because I've been doing this 22 years, but now an idea that we could use is to say, you could start it off by, and I think this is part of my artist statement, by the way, I wasn't that kid that had to paint. I didn't grow up always dreaming of being an artist, but something happened for me when I was 35 years old. And then I told that personal story. And then I went on to say, I choose to paint in layers because that is such a great example of who I've become. Each layer of my life, each hardship, each love, each travel, everything has added to the layers of who I have become. So can you see how one artist statement is just kind of so generic and the other artist statement is much more personal? So that's really what I would suggest to you is when you're putting your artist statement on your website, you make it really personal. Now, this can be tricky, I know, because it is so hard to write about ourselves. If you've ever tried to do this, it can feel impossible. And for years, it really felt like pulling teeth just to try to get an artist to get this artist statement out. But now that we have AI, and I'm just going to say ChatGPT because that's the one I use, but I know there's lots of different platforms out there. But if you can plug in some of these key elements about your story, I also always suggest if you can talk to other people who have bought a piece of your art or maybe have a piece of their art in their home, whether you gifted it to them or not, if you could ask them, how does that art make them feel? And just like get a quick response, don't have to think about it for days. Like really, what is the quick response of how does that art make them feel? So if you can include that content as well as personal information about your story and also a little bit about your process, and you plug that into AI, ChatGPT, and you can say, write me an artist statement of no more than 2 paragraphs based on this information. ChatGPT will spit out the best artist statement. I mean, you can go back in and tweak it, but every time I see an artist do this, I'm like, holy crap, that is crazy that it nailed it that well. And then, you could refine it. You could always say, based on your particular brand, like for me, I would say, make it a little more rebellious, a little more sassy. For you, whatever those characteristics that you embody, you could say, make it a little bit more like that, but it will give you an amazing artist statement. Now, just to go back to this 2 paragraphs thing, it can be really hard, right? To go, well, how am I supposed to encompass everything I feel about my art and my process and my story and everything? How am I supposed to do that and not make it, a page? Well, you totally can. But our attention spans have become so short and people generally will not read past that second paragraph. So yeah, you can write all that, but most likely people are going to miss it. So if you could just commit to doing no more than 2 paragraphs, you're going to get a whole lot more people reading that artist statement. Hey guys, real quick, I want to tell you that one thing I know for sure, that in order for artists to thrive, they need community, they need support, and they need business and creative skills. And that's why I created my membership group called the Honest Art Society. Within the Honest Art Society, I offer coaching calls every month. You get monthly art critiques as well. You get trainings on everything from creative techniques to business skills, and you get exclusive discounts on workshops and courses, but maybe most importantly is you get a community of amazing, kind artists, all in an asshole-free zone. So if you'd love to join us in the Honest Art Society, you can go to the link in the show notes. The cost is only $47 a month, and you can cancel at any time. I'd love to see you there. All right. And how about the other obvious thing that your website needs to include? It needs to include your art, right? That's always going to be something that's going to need to include. So, but let's talk about how the art needs to look. So, I get this question a lot. I take my own photos of my art, and that is the art that I put on my website. I have an iPhone. I'm sure an Android would be the same, but you don't have to have a huge file, a TIFF file or something, a big giant file of your paintings to be able to put it on your website. Your iPhone will be fine, but you want to make sure it is a really good photo of your art. Remember, this is usually the only thing people have to go by is to see your art online. So, number one, make sure that you take the photo in a way that it mirrors the painting so that when you crop it, you don't take out some of the painting, all right? Because it needs to be clean and cropped. Your photos, let me say that again, your photos need to be clean and cropped, not sitting on an easel, not on the wall, clean and cropped. But if you have it, if the painting is on an easel like this, if you're watching, you're listening to this, I'm slanting my hand. So if your painting is on an easel and slanted, but your phone is straight up like this, then you're going to miss a lot of the art. So you're going to want to turn your phone to where it's evenly lined up with the painting. Here's the other thing, is you want to make sure there's no glare. And that can be tricky if you have already varnished it. Like if you've already varnished it like with a glossy finish, it can be really tricky. There are certain apps out there. I believe Visco is one app that you can use. You can just Google it, but there's apps out there that could be helpful in taking out some of that glare, but you don't want the glare in your painting at all. Now, one thing that I have done is if I have a painting and I forget all the time, and I varnish it before I take the photo, and I varnish it, let's say, with glossy, then what I have done, what you could do is you can go ahead and get a matte varnish, because it won't matter if you put it on another layer of varnish. You can get a matte varnish and go over that painting, and that will take out some of the shiny, and it'll take 5 minutes to dry or something like that. And then you can get an image that has no glare on it. No glare. The other thing is you want to make sure your colors are accurate, because can you imagine, let's just say you did a painting and then you think, oh, I'm going to boost these colors a little bit. It looks so much better when I make the colors a little more vibrant. Well, imagine you did that and then you posted it to your website, and then the collector gets the painting and the colors are not accurate. You're going to be getting somebody asking for a refund, because they thought they were going to get one thing and they got something different. So always make sure that your colors are accurate. So that begs the question, how do you do that? How do you make sure colors are accurate? Well, number one, for those of you who are my fluorescent friends, those of you who like painting with fluorescent paints like I do, it is extremely difficult to capture fluorescent at all. Just know that. I don't have the answer to that, but just know that can be a thing. But as far as color accuracy for the others, I find that if I take the painting outside on an overcast day or maybe early in the morning, I can get a much more accurate color with my iPhone. The other thing that I do that seems kind of counterintuitive, I have some windows in my studio. They're not big by any stretch of the imagination, but they do provide some natural light. And I find that if I turn off all the lights in my studio, and then, it's kind of dark. It would never be anything I would want to paint in. And I just have the natural light from those windows. I get the most accurate colors. But I know a lot of people don't have access to windows in their studio. That's okay. Like I said, take them outside, not on a really, really bright sunny day. A little bit of gray or overcast is usually best. Now, that's for the photos. But in addition to that, on your website, you want to include the size of the art and the price of the art, and if possible, a short description of the art. Okay? So size, price, and short description. Obviously, the size is the obvious one, right? I don't care if you're looking, most people are looking at websites on phones these days on a mobile device. So keep that in mind. So imagine if you've got a painting that's this big, but it's actually, like a 48 by 60 or something. Nobody can tell the difference. So always make sure that the size is on the painting. Now, this one is controversial. I always say to add the price, because if somebody loves a painting and there is no price, they will assume that they can't afford it. How about that? Now, I know this can get tricky if you're represented by a gallery. You can still do it though. You would just not want to have a price that is less than the one that is offered at the gallery, because you never want to undercut your galleries. But okay, think of it this way. If you go and you shop anything, like especially if you're talking about shoes or great clothing, if there's no price, you're going to assume you can't afford it. And you don't want to be embarrassed by asking and then having to say, oh, sorry, I can't afford that. So no price, no sale. You always want to have the price on the website. And I know that's controversial. Some people are like, no, that's not true. Well, fight me on that, whatever. Okay. And then the third thing that you want to have on your paintings is, even if it's one sentence, preferably two, but even if it's one sentence, have some sort of short story or some sort of information about the painting. Right? You could obviously say, well, here's the other thing. I do say mixed media on canvas. Sorry, that's the fourth thing. Sorry, ADD. Okay. Fourth thing is you want to talk about how it's made and on what substrate. But let me go back to the story. So people buy emotionally. When they see a piece of art and they love it, it stirs something in them emotionally, even if the only emotion is, holy shit, that is gorgeous. I absolutely love that. That's stunning, right? Or that's so powerful. So if you can then additionally write a sentence or two about what the piece is about, it's what it's about. If you haven't listened to the previous podcast from last week when we're talking about process, you don't want to put what the process was for creating the piece. You want to create a story about what this is about. When you can do that, then that helps people relate on an emotional level to the piece, and you'll have a much higher likelihood of selling that piece. So another thing that is really great to have on your website is e-commerce. Now, it's not an absolute have to, but I will tell you, you will garner way more sales if somebody can go to your website, see the painting or the print or maybe a product or service that you offer, and they can just purchase it right there. Because if they have to stop, send an email, anything like that, that is just one more decision that they have to make. It's one more barrier to entry. So if you can have some sort of e-commerce, some sort of checkout on your website, it's going to serve you so much better than if you don't. All right. Now, this one might seem obvious, but I can tell you I've looked at enough websites where apparently it's not so obvious. And that is, you want to let people know how they can contact you. And what I suggest you do not do is put your phone number. Do not put your phone number as a means for people to contact you. You can put an email. You can have a form for them to fill out, but have some way for them to contact you. I also do not recommend putting your home address. If you have to put an address, there are like post office boxes and things that you could get to be able to redirect that information. But I wouldn't put my phone number. I wouldn't put my personal home email address, but I would put an email address for them to be able to contact you. Whatever. Make sure there's a way for them to be able to contact you, because you never know what they might want to contact you for, right? It might be to buy a painting, but it also might be because they want to feature you on a podcast, or they might want to, have you celebrate you on stage. You don't know what it might be. I've had lots of people reach out to me for various different things, and I was so glad that I had my contact information on my website. So be sure that you have that. Now, just to finish this up, a couple more things. Number one, I always suggest that you have your social media links on your website, because that's really where people can stay up to date with all of the new things that you're up to. That's also a great place for them to see more of your personality, more of your personal brand and who you are, because remember that people buy the artist and not just the art. So having your social media links there so that, maybe they want to go down a little rabbit hole about who you are. If it's right there, then they can go to Instagram or whatever your social media links are. Now, lastly, I just want to talk real quick about, the question is, should you have your CV on your website? And for those of you who are not familiar, a CV is basically like an artist's resume, and you can or you cannot. But here's the key, is I always suggest that if you have a CV that has a lot of important accolades, maybe you you went to art school, maybe you've had several solo exhibitions, maybe you've been accepted to important exhibitions, either locally across the country or maybe around the globe, any of that sort of thing. If you've won a best in show, if you've got, do you see what I'm saying? If you've got some really amazing accomplishments that you have done, I always suggest it does not hurt to put the CV on your website. But if you are somebody, you're like, hey, I've only been painting a few years, and I've been selling some work. I'm hoping that this website helps me sell more art, and I just really want to be seen, but you don't have a lot of things to put on that resume or that CV, I say leave it out. There's absolutely no reason that it has to be included. If you apply for gallery representation or you apply for an exhibit and they ask for your CV, then you can create one at that time. But as far as if it needs to be included on the website, it really doesn't. But the one thing I want to leave you with about your website is please let it be an awesome representation of you. Okay? So I'm saying this because I know people have gone to my website and they try to, they look at that, which is fine. You go to my website all day long, totally fine with that. But then they see some things and they try to replicate that for them. And that's fine if you've got a personality that's very similar to mine. But it's even better if you look at your unique attributes and the things that make you unique. And by the way, some of this can be like where you live, right? If you live in somewhere beautiful, or you live in a small town, or anything that makes you uniquely you. Maybe you're one of 9 children. Maybe you're like, I don't know, what are the things that make you you? Whatever that is, don't shy away from that, because like I just said, people want to buy the artists as well as the art. And the more that you can let them in on seeing the fullness of who you are and trust that that is enough, the more art that you're going to sell, and just the more fun you're going to have as an artist in this experience. Okay, well, if this is helpful to you, like I said, I would really appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review and 5 stars and a review on your audio platform. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe, and comment below if this was helpful. Okay, until next time, take good care of yourselves and each other. Peace out.